Hello everyone, this is Matt from Real World Review, and today we're going to fix the screen on the Samsung Note 10. So the tools that we will need are going to be a PH000 bit, a razor blade of some sort, a playing card for cutting through adhesive, a flexible pry tool like this one, and also a plastic pry tool, and we will need some heat. Since we're going to be using glue, we're going to need some clamps and also some glue. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the S Pen and the SIM card tray. Okay, they definitely could have put an SD card in this phone. Alright, so let's heat up the back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on mainly the bottom because that's where I'm going to start, and I'm going to heat up the sides. So what I'm going to do is start with the bottom, and then I'm going to go up the left side, and then eventually I'm going to go up the right side, and then we're going to heat up the top. So add a decent amount of heat and try and get a playing card in there. I recommend using a razor blade to start, but once you get a playing card in there, just use just that. This adhesive is very strong, so you want to make sure to add some heat because you don't want to break the back. So like I said, once the adhesive kind of loosens up a little bit, we're going to go up the left side and then we're going to go up the right side. Once there's a decent amount of space, you can get your fingers in there and then use some heat to separate that adhesive. Then it will kind of fold like this, and then you can just remove the back. If the adhesive rips off like this, I would recommend pulling it off while it's still warm, or else it might be a little bit difficult, like what just happened. But I'll pull off the rest of the adhesive later on. Same thing with the adhesive on here. I'm just going to pull off a little bit of this, but you can do that when you're putting the phone back together. It doesn't really matter. So what we're going to do is grab that PH000 bit and we're going to remove all the screws that you can see. I'm going to start with the bottom ones and then I'm going to go up to the top, and there's two different panels on the top. So once you get all the screws out, this little metal panel is going to lift down like this. Then you can unplug the wireless charging cable and then the battery cable. The wireless charging cable will lift up as well as the bottom speaker. And then we can lift up this little top piece as well. Then you want to unplug all the cables that you can see, starting with the bottom board cables and then the display cable. And then we'll grab a PH000 bit and remove these screws right here. Once those screws are loose, we'll grab this little pry tool and just pry up right here. And it should just kind of come out like this. Next, we're going to unplug the S Pen cable, the S Pen receiver, and the power and volume buttons. Then what we want to do is just pry up on this side right here and just carefully take out the logic board. You also want to make sure that the front camera is a little bit loose too. And then it should just pop out like this. And the last thing that we're going to be removing is the battery. You want to make sure to be very careful and not puncture this battery. What we're doing is we're using this tool specifically because it bends really easily and it's not that sharp on the edges. I highly recommend against using metal on batteries, but this is a little bit easier for me, so I recommend just using a plastic pry tool, but it may be a little bit more difficult to remove this battery. Also make sure not to bend the battery either. So once that's removed, we're going to evaluate the screen that we have. All the other pieces are in the new screen, but if you need to remove the speaker, this is how you're going to do it in this little top left corner. You're just going to take it out and put it into the new phone. And then same thing with the vibrating mechanism. You want to start on the top right corner, take it out, and then put it in the new device. And then you're ready to put the phone back together. So remove all these covers. I don't know why there's so many, but if you have any, remove them. And make sure to remove the front camera one as well. Then we're going to start with the logic board. You want to push all the cables away and kind of set it in on the left side first where the cameras are, and then push down on the right side and line up that front camera. If the front camera pops out, just push it back in. It's not that difficult. Then we can start plugging in these cables on the sides, and then we're going to put in the charging port cable. set that down, and then put in the 3 screws. Lastly, we want to put in the battery, and what we're going to do is we're going to set it in place, and then we're going to plug it in to make sure that it's going to fit properly. And it looks like it does, so what we're going to do is we're going to unplug the battery until we're ready to put it back together. Now we can plug in the display cable, this bottom port cable, and this other bottom port cable. Then I'm making sure that the battery is set in properly. Then the last thing we want to do is we want to try and move over this cable, because sometimes you will have issues with the phone reading the S Pen. You can either remove just that cable, but I recommend removing this plastic piece because it's fairly easy to move over and it's a lot easier to just set that cable back in place. So what you'll do is just remove that and then set it into the new phone. That's all you got to do. Since this screen did come from Samsung, I don't have to worry too much about that, but we'll test it just to make sure. Now we're ready to put the phone back together. I plugged in the battery, but you don't need to until you put the little metal piece on. So we're going to put this plastic piece on, we're going to put these screws in, and then we're going to put the bottom speaker in, starting with the bottom speaker obviously, and then put those screws in. And then we'll plug in the wireless charging. And then we'll set this little metal piece down and put in all those screws. Now we can remove the adhesive. Like I showed you, I removed a decent amount of adhesive. I'm not going to be using double-sided adhesive. I'm going to be using just glue, so I don't have to make sure that this is perfectly flat. But if you are going to use adhesive, I would recommend using some rubbing alcohol to remove the residue on the back of this phone. But make sure to be careful because it is curved and it could crack fairly easily. So what I'm going to do before I put the back on is I want to make sure that the S Pen is working because I want to make sure that that cable works. And after it powers on, I'm going to test this. And at first it looked like it wasn't working, but the battery was just dead, and it looks like it's working now. So like I said, make sure to clean up all the adhesive. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get this glue. I'm using T7000 in this video, but any variant of that will work. E6000, E7000, whatever. As long as it's similar glue. I'll also leave a link in the description. So you want to add adhesive around the corners, but you also want to add it a little bit over the speaker, so then the phone doesn't rattle too much when you have the speaker on loud. And then all we're going to do is just set the back in place. It's kind of flimsy, so I would highly recommend using clips on this. And what I do is I like to put 5 clips on both sides, and then I like to put 1 clip on the top and 1 clip on the bottom, but I lost the top clip, but everything should be fine. After letting this sit for about 30 minutes to an hour, everything should be good. It should be dried up. What you want to do is take off the clips, kind of clean up all the adhesive around the edges if there was any that leaked, and it didn't really look like there was too much that leaked. And if there is any leakage, you could just clean it off with a fingernail. It's not really too crazy. Or if you have some rubbing alcohol, it'll kind of break it down a little bit better. And that's about it. There's a little protective piece on here, but everything is good. Hopefully this video helped you out. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section or on Twitter at MattofRDBR, and feel free to follow me on the social media listed above. Subscribe to my channel so you can see more repair and review videos, and hit that bell button so then YouTube actually reminds you when those videos do come out. Thanks for watching.